From the News Channel 5 network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Laban here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Monday night on News Channel 5. Plus, game week is here, at least if you are around a college campus. College football season gets kicked off for real this week, with all due respect to the kids at Cal and Hawaii who kicked things off last week down under in Australia. Thursday night action. Vanderbilt with a big game to kick off SEC play, not just the season, but the SEC season on Thursday night against South Carolina. Tennessee, of course, taking on Appalachian State over on Rocky Top with the opportunity to get off to a good start ahead of the Battle of Bristol. Other big games Thursday night, Western Kentucky kicking off the year. You've got Tennessee Tech and Marcus Satterfield's first game. And then you've got Middle Tennessee hosting Alabama A&M on Saturday. You also have Tennessee State in the annual John Merritt Classic. So a lot of games locally, and what a schedule nationally this weekend. Alabama USC, LSU Wisconsin, UCLA Texas A&M, Ole Miss Florida State. Go on and on and on. It is a great first weekend of college football. And, of course, the Titans play Thursday night as well. The final game of the preseason is generally not a great game to watch. It is probably the most useless game in terms of the course of the season and trying to get a feel for what your team is actually going to look like. That's because the starters usually only play about a quarter, or about a drive, of the first quarter. And then the rest of the game are the guys trying to make the roster, the cut down from 75 to 53. But still, there's some drama there to watch on Thursday night as well. And then those cuts, which I think are going to be fascinating, because if you watch the cuts yesterday, the Titans still have two more that they have to do by tomorrow to get down to 75 by the deadline, and then 53 by next week. But if you watch the first cuts, when they went from 90 to 77 yesterday, there were some somewhat interesting names in those cuts. Rapati Patoa-Tua, Bleedy Ray Wilson, Deontrez Mount, Andy Gallick. Those are kind of interesting names as you look at the Titans right now. Patoa-Tua and Ray Wilson started for this team over the last couple of years. Some of that had to do with injuries and all of that, but still, these were guys who were once starters for this team. Andy Gallick was a draft pick a year ago that played when Brian Schwenke went down. Now he's injured, so his is a little different story. Deontrez Mount was a 6th-round draft pick a year ago. Now he doesn't make the team. That is a very, very interesting thing. And to me, what that tells me is all of a sudden now, that is the best proof we have to this point of the job John Robinson has done as general manager in 8 months of upgrading the talent level that the Titans are operating with. Because up until this year, I don't think we've seen the Titans get to cut day, at least this first cut day, and really make any cuts that even make you kind of step back and think about it. These are usually the cuts of the guys that you frankly have to look at the roster just to remember who they were. That wasn't necessarily the case yesterday. And again, they've got 24 more cuts they have to make before they get down to the final 53. So you know there will be some names. Justin Hunter's on the cut line, let's say. Marquestin Huff, Bishop Sankey, David Cobb. There's a lot of guys, former draft picks, guys who have played for this team. Now all of a sudden may not be good enough to even make this team. I think that is the biggest testament we've seen so far at the John the job that John Robinson has done upgrading this roster. Pretty good preseason game to show for it on Saturday night in Oakland. The third preseason game, obviously the most important because of the length that the starters play. Titans starters went just to halftime. But at least on offense, you saw everything you wanted to see. Marcus Mariota commanded the huddle well. He threw the ball well. He converted on third down. He was able to stretch the field a little bit. The running game with Murray and Henry was very effective. The offensive line showed improvement. Several wide receivers got involved in the game. And most importantly, the Titans put up 20 points in the first half, scoring on all 4 possessions they were in before a final play kneel down before the half. That is efficiency. That's what you want to see from this offense that looks much, much improved from what we've seen the last couple of years, at least in the preseason. Still some concerns about the defense. Another first drive touchdown is something you worry about. Starting quarterbacks for the opposing teams have operated at about a 140 passer rating so far in the preseason. That isn't going to cut it. But they've also been very vanilla defensively. And remember, Dick LeBeau is in charge here. And his track record is pretty good. So until they start to get torched in the regular season, I'm not going to worry a whole heck of a lot about it, especially when you consider the fact Parrish Cox hasn't been there the last couple weeks. McCourty was held out the first game, I believe. So as Mike Mularkey said today when Parrish Cox returned to practice, he said, I really haven't seen those two guys on the field together. They're supposed to be our top 2 cornerbacks. So I'm excited, even if it's only for a few plays on Thursday night, to have that finally happen. And I think Titans fans should be too, because that allows everybody to move into a more natural role. You put those 2 guys at the top 2 cornerback spots, and now all of a sudden Bryce McCain can move inside. Antoine Blake becomes a nickel guy or a dime guy for you. All of a sudden that secondary maybe doesn't look as bad as it has so far in this preseason. So don't push the panic button just yet when it comes to the defensive side of the football. At least that's my take so far. 737-7767 is the number tonight. What did you think about Game 3 in Oakland? The Titans won 27-14. Your impressions of that offense that looked so good in the first half, and that defense that struggled out of the gate but made some plays. They forced 3 turnovers in the second half. Sean Spence delivering an absolute slobber-knocking hit on DeAndre Washington that forced a fumble that David Bass scooped and scored, which gave the Titans their final touchdown and final points of the game in the second half of that 13-point victory. What did you think? What was your take there? What was your take on the cuts that we saw yesterday? And what do you think now moving forward towards the regular season with this Titans team? And also, what game this weekend are you looking the most forward to in college football? What game are you most excited for in college football on a great slate of games? Is it one of the local games with Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, on down the list? Are you excited about that, or are you excited about some of the huge games out there that may have playoff implications even in week 1? Some good ones for SEC teams: Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, all in big-time showdowns in week number 1. What game are you most excited to see this weekend on the college football slate? 737-7767 is the number. We're off and running tonight. Phone line's already lighting up, so get in on the discussion. We're going to take our first break. We'll come back and get to your calls. Talking Titans, talking the start of college football tonight right here on SportsLine.